take it away.
Thanks a lot, Doug. Thanks all of you for getting me out of Little Cottonwood Canyon. There's too much snow there. There's a stable snowpack. I hate it. But after seeing Alex's talk this morning, I'm ready to go back home and hide under my bed. Yeah, I appreciate you guys having me here. This is for the ski patrollers in the room, or the mountain managers. How many patrollers in the room are there? Cool, so we got a crowd. Awesome, all right. I'm sorry to all the scientists, there isn't a single graph in this presentation. I'm just a patroller at heart, I'm sorry. So yeah, as background, I've worked at Alta for 23 years, and I've run their Avalanche program for 9 of those years. I've got 12 days left before I move on to something else. And in the last 9 years, we have moved away with Carl Berkland's guidance from military artillery to remote avalanche control systems. And I know that there's a lot of talk about this occurring up here, particularly at Big Sky. I don't know where you guys stand at Bridger in the club, but I would forecast that this will probably be part of your future. So this is kind of a storytelling talk. Alta has a long history of avalanche mitigation. We have been shooting military artillery in the canyon for 75 years. And in recent years, we have been encouraged, meaning told, by the US Army, that we would be no longer shooting artillery. We were getting rid of it, whether we liked it or not. And with that in mind, the Alta and Little Cottonwood Canyon Remote Avalanche Control System program was born. We now have a substantial RACS program in Alta ski area and throughout all of Little Cottonwood Canyon. Within the canyon, we have a vast selection of different systems. We have 72 total installations, all sorts of different types, and they all work and don't work for various reasons. And that's what I'm going to talk about. I'm going to focus primarily on Alta ski area. It would be too much to go through the entire Little Cottonwood Canyon program. So like I said, we've been shooting artillery for 75 years, and in 2012, the military came and said, in James Alderson's nasal voice, he said, "I'm coming with the green truck, I'm gonna take your gun away." Okay, and it didn't seem like something we could argue, so we moved forward with this program, and it wasn't an easy thing to do, and it took a lot of planning. In the end, we couldn't have been happier with the results, but it was a hard learning process, and it will be for you guys as we move forward. The howitzer we were using was one of the primary tools for this mountain, Mount Baldy, as well as for Highway 210, which is the road up Little Cottonwood Canyon. And we're looking at over 100 targets, howitzer targets. How are we going to do this? And with that loss of that gun looming, we knew that we needed a plan. But rather than tackling this huge task all at once, we wanted to test the waters with RACS with something less committing. And that gets us into planning. This whole talk really should be about planning to blow things up instead of actually blowing them up. So I would encourage you to tiptoe, not to dive. It's a lot like crossing the slope. Tiptoe out there first, don't dive in. There's an enormous amount of planning and testing that needs to go into your program, and this talk really should be an hour of just talking about plans and drawing maps. There's countless aspects of the installation you need to consider. In the case of Alta, we set out with the goal of reducing projectile avalanche mitigation, first and foremost, and to increase the level of safety for the employees and guests of the ski area. Those are the two goals. We had a goal primarily to reduce artillery, then avalanchers, and by result, or in the end result, being increase the safety margin to our ski patrol. And there's a lot of people that are going to want to help you with this. The manufacturers are going to come and they're going to want to help you out. And they will help you with planning and stuff. But I can't emphasize to you enough that you know your terrain and your snowpack better than anybody else. And you need to be an active participant in the planning and installation of RACS. Fancy dinners in France are good for getting drunk. They're not really good planning sessions. Okay? That doesn't qualify as planning. We've learned that you need to plan this program from the point of view of an avalanche hunter, first and foremost. That's what you guys are. That's what we do. And most of us, consultants, manufacturers, et cetera, that all have really bad advice to share with you, like me today, have never actually used RACS in your terrain. I've used RACS in my terrain. Never use RACS in your terrain. You need to be part of this planning process. Consulting input and manufacturing input is invaluable to learn what system does what. Basically to show you what a hammer is versus what a saw is and how you apply them, and then you decide what you're going to build. As with many things in the Avalanche world, there's the right tool for the right job. We've got a whole lot of tools in our RACS toolbox at this point. It's part of your planning to decide which device you would like to use and for what purpose. We've found that the Obel is great for smaller confined start zones. GAZX exploders work great in shallower snowpacks or wetter packs. Weissen delivers a really big bomb for really big start zones. We love that tool. Different tools for different jobs, for different places, for different people. The other planning considerations will be reliance on aircraft. You guys are kind of out here without a lot of really big helicopters around, with the exception of Billings Air over in Billings. You need to be careful about relying on helicopters if you don't have them close by, because when these things break or it comes time to reload, you need to have aircraft at your beck and call. We basically have an ongoing tab with 3 helicopter companies in Little Cottonwood Canyon. So you'll be in a tough spot if you don't have airplanes close by, airplanes being helicopters. So, in the case of Alta, we said, or like I said, we chose to tiptoe into the program, and here goes the storytelling. The first thing we did was install a single Obel X to replace a single Avalanche target. And this gave us a really good feeling for how RACS installations would work on a small scale. This worked out really well. So we followed it up with 3 more Obels, and eventually the elimination of the entire Avalanche program for that slope. This method gave us confidence that the RACS program would work for us. The Obel installation also met the goal of protecting a major cat road below, which gave us increased levels of confidence for the cat drivers at night and the skiing public during the day. So we learned a lot, and we actually accomplished something as well. This new Obel array was now fired in place of what had been an almost daily Avalancher mission. We learned through the first installation that we could use RACS to fire when and where we chose, which was important. Peak of instability. I can go out and push a button right now and shoot these Obels. Well, maybe we won't do that right now, but. We also learned about the complexities of reloading and maintaining the remote systems. This first step gave us invaluable knowledge gleaned through both success and some failures, and eventually the confidence to take the next step. So that was step number 1. Step number 2 occurred 3 years later. We had a little problem called COVID that cut into some people's budgets. But eventually we moved forward. In the East Castle. These big paths sit above a popular groomed run, and a new high-speed lift pushed this terrain up on the priority list. We were wanting to expand our RACS program, but didn't feel like we had a really good plan for Mount Baldy and the highway to replace the artillery just yet. So with this scenario, we moved forward with East Castle and chose the Weissen Tower to kind of test it out and see how it worked. It deploys an 11-pound explosive, basically the cast booster you guys throw times 5, and hanging from a rope so you get a good air shot every single time for big, big start zones. It's got a wide effective radius, and it made a lot of sense for this terrain. We had now installed 4 Weissen towers in this large high alpine terrain, but had chosen an area which was less critical and that we could continue to shoot with an Avalancher as backup should the devices not work out. Proving these devices for the season made us feel good that we were ready to step up and actually move into bigger terrain again and replace artillery. So we moved on to RACS installation number 3, Mount Baldy. Weissen towers on this terrain are really effective. The terrain is really steep. This is a lot like Lone Peak that you guys have. Similar in size and scale and steepness type stuff. With this big shot, we can test the snowpack and feel really good about what's going on up there. And we can, as a result, leave the terrain, which is solid gold real estate, underneath it. As much as I'd rather go up and ski this stuff, because it's fun skiing, the intermediate and beginner powder skiing terrain below it is the real estate that we're looking to protect. And we can leave that terrain open for long periods of time now that we couldn't before because of these results. Mount Baldy now has 10 Wiesen towers on its north face. This completely replaced the previous 18 howitzer targets for that mountain. At this point, we consider ourselves all in with RACS, as you can see in this photo. We got these things all over the place. We have 19 total devices in areas that were previously shot with artillery or Avalanchers. We have plans for another 5 devices within the ski area for next summer. Supplementary to this, we're working closely with the Utah Department of Transportation and Snowbird Ski Resort to install 14 more Wiesen towers in Little Cottonwood Canyon this summer, which will replace another artillery piece on Mount Superior. And we're up to, with that, we'll be up to 86 total installations within the canyon, consisting of GAZX, OBLX, Wiesen towers, VW exploders. And we have one Daisy Bell that sits in a garage. We'll get into that. So there's a lot of beauties to these tools. One is you don't have to actually fire guns. You can just sit there and press buttons on your phone and then film, like I'm doing in this video. We can shoot when and where we please. No gun crews, no necessary hiking to high terrain, you know. Avalanche work that was previously a very long process is now really, really simple. We can literally do push button avalanche control. And then you get into the fancy era of we put in thermal imaging cameras everywhere so we can watch avalanches in the middle of the night. So we're getting lazy. Building these things, though, is tough. It's an undertaking. It's very, very expensive. We found an excellent installer who is incredibly capable, and we won't install RACS without him at this point. The installation is super heavily dependent on helicopters. Consists of site prep followed by deep rock drilling, forming and pouring of footings, you know, and setting of towers. It's really similar to chairlift construction, but in really complicated places. Places where you normally wouldn't be setting up drill rigs like this. So, it's hard work. It's good work, and you need to be involved in it from the get-go. If you're running an avalanche program or want to understand how these things work, you need to go out there and run jackhammers as part of it. Once it's all said and done, though, you have these fancy new tools on your mountainside. What are the benefits of these things? RACS generally work, and they work really, really well. They're avalanche hunters, and that's the business that we're in. These devices give us immediate access to start zones at the time and place of our choosing. Using the RACS has many benefits in that they cut down on time for mitigation, eliminate projectile-based mitigation, reduce the amount of handling of explosives, and provide for the protection of life and property, basically your ski patrol, before they step out on something really big. The best benefit of RACS is worker safety. Mitigating avalanches remotely in big terrain before a patroller steps out on the slope is an undeniable benefit, and you don't end up with photos of people with their airbags blown underneath avalanches like that. Alta will continue to invest heavily in RACS as they move into the future. The planned future locations are based primarily now on the desire to reduce avalanche hazard posed to patrollers running hand charge routes. So we're going to start putting these things in to add margin to the patroller running a route where before he steps out on something really big and exposed, we can say we've done an 11-pound shot before you step out there and hang your ass out in the air. So, but for the patrollers in the room, I'm not trying to put you out of a job. Don't worry. There's always going to be a job for ski patrollers. There's no feasible way to effectively mitigate an entire ski area using just RACS. The patroller will always be needed to do the hard work of mitigating and forecasting avalanches. I've often heard concern from people that RACS installations will, quote, kill ski patrolling. And that's not true. It will not happen. As an example, the Alta Patrol has grown exponentially in size since we started putting racks in. It takes more people to refill these things and work on them. So. But they also come with some challenges. We've gone over benefits. There's a lot of challenges. This is the slide that is probably the most boring slide in this whole thing, but everyone asks the most questions about. So they're not without their faults. We have had racks malfunction in every way you can imagine. They leak, they fail to fire, they fail to communicate, they fall from underneath helicopters. Yes. They sometimes just blow themselves up. Yes. All of this, along with serious financial and infrastructure investments, can present large challenges to operations. But regardless, I would tell you that the benefits outweigh the challenges. I'm sure there will be many questions about the slide. I look forward to answering them. You know, it's a longer conversation. We're having beers tonight, right? Okay, cool. I'll have a few. Other things you guys should understand about this real quick is how this works differently through the ATF than it would just being a normal ski patrol. So permitting for RACS was really difficult in the past. The avalanche industry is now on the radar of the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms in a really good way. I know that sounds funny that the alphabet police think that we're cool, but they do. And they think we're cool enough that in 2022, they passed a special ruling called 2022-2, which directly addresses explosive storage requirements of remote avalanche control systems. This ruling allows for simple notification of the ATF of the planned installation of your racks. You have to give them their location, their compliance with the table of distances, and then they're literally just going to file that information in your file as appropriate, whereas previously we had to go through a long multi-year process of getting a variance for every single installation. Now you just write them a letter. Super, super slick. It's way efficient. As long as you do this. So some racks qualify as storage magazines under ATF rules. Those are your Wiesen towers and your Avalanche Guard systems. Your gas-based systems, such as GASX, OBLX, and BW, are also governed under ATF rules. In this case, you'll notify the ATF of their installation as mentioned before, but you'll also be required to change your explosive permit type from a type 33 user of explosive, which is what most ski areas have, to a type 22 manufacturer of explosives. Who in here knows what type of explosive permit they have? Okay, you're gonna want a type 22, okay? The reason is, the ATF doesn't care how much gas you store in this room and we can all sit around and smoke cigarettes next to it, right? Until you mix it. Now you're building a bomb. So they consider you a manufacturer of explosives now if you're in the RACS business. So you get a new permit, you let them know that you're building these things, and off to the races. It's actually pretty straightforward. So the RACS world continues to develop and evolve. We have built this new explosive for the Wiesen Tower. This is a combined effort of Alta, Snowbird, Utah Department of Transportation, and the Colorado Department of Transportation. It's proven to be a game changer for overall effectiveness, as well as very effective for hunting deep slab. We took their old emulsion shot from Wiesen, threw it away, and built a Comp B 11 pounder, just like your hand charge. Dual cap well, same deal. The explosive has double the peak pressure over a shorter duration, and that holds true for up to 200 feet away from the point of detonation. There's also a new 2-part explosive being developed for Wiesen, and we're gonna be testing that in Little Cottonwood Canyon on the 16th and 17th of this month. So more to follow on that. That 2-part explosive will radically reduce your distances from chairlifts and other infrastructure for storage requirements, because it's technically inert until it falls from the tower and mixes. See how it goes. Gas exploders also continue to develop with the invention of the BW exploder. There on the left, that's a brand new gas exploder, which is in use at Alta and Jackson Hole this winter. It shows great promise in in the world of gas exploders, helps to eliminate helicopter dependency. I'm a big fan of this BW exploder. The O-bell has also been improved with that oversized chamber that you see there to provide a bigger bang from the device. So we're finished with artillery, but we still have about 25 targets that will be handled by the Avalancher through next season. This is down from about 70 at the beginning. The goal wasn't to completely eliminate Avalaunchers, but to cut back on their reliance, or our reliance on their device. So we're in a way better spot now, and eventually we will completely eliminate them because we've really embraced this program. We'll install more RACS in the Devil's Castle, which will shoot for worker protection primarily. Not to really protect room terrain below. It's all about worker protection moving here on. And we'll also be putting some in to protect above our base area for a new day lodge. So like I said, these things have enormous benefits in summation. You know, they increase the safety of employees and guests and allow you to do so in a time-efficient manner as you see fit, but they come with a lot of challenges. From bad things happening to just where am I going to store all of these in the summer. In the end, I'd tell you that moving into the world of remote avalanche control systems has been a game changer for Little Cottonwood Canyon. I've seen that through my career in Little Cottonwood, and we're really happy with the RACS program, and it will continue to grow and I think improve the safety of avalanche workers and the public throughout the country moving forward. So you're going to see a lot more of them, I hope. So I'll be done. See, I didn't show one graph. Carl. Yes, sir.
Do you have detection systems? What do you think about it?
Yeah, we're using infrasound and radar. We're playing with both systems. The radar is really good at showing you detonations and showing you avalanches. It's also really good at showing you skiers in the middle of the night, interestingly. But infrasound works as well for it. VESAN will put infrasound on all of your devices if you choose to go that route. We have not gone that route within the ski area, but on the highway, yes. So, yeah. Yes, sir.
Yeah, how much maintenance time a week would you say you guys put into?
Not much a week in the winter. The goal is to put a lot of maintenance time in the summer.
Yeah.
So all the manufacturers are really good about coming out and doing maintenance on your device in the summer months. You know, it takes about a week to maintain 10 Wiesen towers, basically one a day, you know. And they're there nonstop all summer long working on Wiesen towers. MND does the same thing for the O-bells and the GAZEX. Ron can tell you how difficult dealing with some of these GAZEX installations on the mountainside is. You basically have to become a high altitude plumber for the summer months, and it can be very, very challenging. But if you put your time in the summer, they tend to work pretty well in the winter. But they are maintenance heavy, they're intensive. Yes, sir.
What's like the contingency? So like one doesn't fire, or there's a misfire or something, do you keep that train closed, or do you have to try to go out there with hand charges, or how does that work?
Well, until you get very comfortable with the system, I would encourage you to keep your Avalaunchers lubed up as backup. But once you build these things, and if you do it right, one thing we learned the hard way is they're going to come and they're going to say, you need 3 towers for that mountain. And you're going to say, no, I need 5. Okay? Because what you do is you overlap them a little bit. You spend the extra 200 grand up front to overlap it just a little bit. You're going to have to fire them less. If one breaks, you have redundancy. You won't reload as frequently. You know, it's worth spending a little bit extra, and I know 200 grand is a lot of money, but it's worth, in the world of RACS, it's not that much money, I promise. Okay. These things are really expensive. If you spend just a little extra money to put in one extra exploder here and one extra exploder there, then you have the redundancy to overlap. So like I said, Mount Baldy has 10 towers on it, right? Today, or no, yesterday, they didn't shoot them today. Yesterday, to cover that entire mountain, they shot 4 total towers because you've got enough overlap that you don't have to shoot every single target every single time. Does that make sense? So that's your backup. Yes, sir.
Just a little comment, it also depends on what you use to control the slope before you put your RACS on. Because if you use howitzer, you probably don't want to use the howitzer once you have put on the slope, because it's just going to get destroyed.
We're pretty comfortable shooting around them with Avalaunchers.
Yeah, you need to be comfortable with your avalanche.
Don't want to frag these things with your howitzer. They cost $250,000 a piece, so, you know. Yeah.
For big alpine terrain like this, you know, I mean, it seems like clear utility. You know, decades down the line, do you see RACS becoming smaller, replacing more traditional mitigation in smaller terrain with smaller pipes? I mean, where do you see this type of technology in 20, 30 years?
20 or 30 years, I'm going to be dead. So, no, I'm kidding. I think you're going to see smaller exploders, much like the BW exploder. The BW that we're testing in Alta right now, right, comes in its 1.5 meter size that we're currently using. We're building it in a 3 meter size to play with next year, but you can also build it smaller. You know, the 1.5 meter is really kind of a 2-pounder on a stick, if you think about it just that way. And we're going to put out a bunch of sensors next week and actually measure that. But that's how we're thinking about the 1.5. I think you could feasibly start putting those in places where you just don't want to go out there and do that stick shot, and you don't have a good way to do a trolley, you know, but it's just part of your route. Absolutely. And that device is going to be potentially, I don't want to speak for, you know, Alpine infrastructure, but potentially substantially cheaper. And that will drive the price point of all of these down a little bit, I think. We have plans to put that device, I shouldn't say we, I've only got 12 days left. They have plans to put that device in a couple of places where they're just on hand routes where it's just a tricky place to do anything else. Yeah.
You said that Altitude Patrol has grown since installing them, but most of the maintenance happens in the summertime. So is that just because you're able to keep more terrain open, or why an increase in, most of the maintenance is in the summertime, why do you have an increase in patrol size?
When you bring these things down to reload them with the helicopters, it's a 10-person mission to be landing boxes out of helicopters, refilling them, assembling explosives, you know, doing this whole process, putting tanks back in the O-belts to fly them back up, and you're running a ski area at the exact same time. So you can't rob your entire patrols. I can't rob the patrol's schedule, basically, completely, just to play with my RACS systems. Does that
How
make
often
sense?
do you guys reload them?
We do 2 reload days, about a month. 2 reload days a month. So it really depends on how often you're shooting, but we shoot a lot in Little Cottonwood. Shoot a lot.
It's the infinite snowpack.
What's that?
I was saying, hence the infinite snowpack.
Infinite, right. Right. Who's hungry?
Thank you.
Okay.